What begins as a harmless connection between a talented student and her married teacher slowly turns into something dangerously intimate. But when the lines blur beyond repair and it is time to stop, obsession takes over, and she's not ready to let go. This is the recap of the movie Miller's Girl.
What?
You thought that you were gonna be somebody. Overreaching without ambition. Do you know what that means? It means you weren't brave enough to be better.
The story begins in the serene countryside of Tennessee, where a teenage girl named Cairo lives alone in her parents' large, quiet home. Both her parents are high-profile lawyers, often away for work, leaving her to experience her adolescent life alone. Each morning, Cairo dresses in her signature tall boots and short skirt and walks confidently through the woods to school, seemingly unfazed by the solitude around her. At school, her literature teacher, Jonathan Miller, is already in class. Mr. Miller is a middle-aged man who is burdened by unfulfilled ambitions of becoming a renowned author, as he now leads a quiet life teaching at the school. This was Cairo's first day in Mr. Miller's class, and to Cairo, he is more than just a teacher. He is a comforting presence, someone she respects deeply, and she even harbors a faint admiration for him. So when she arrived early, Miller was impressed not just with her punctuality, but also her brilliance. As they talk, Cairo reveals that she's already read the entire semester's reading list, which was 12 books in total. Their shared love for literature leads to a lively exchange, as they soon find out that they both have a passion for storytelling and ideas. But the moment is soon interrupted by the arrival of Cairo's classmate Winnie, a repeat student with a mischievous streak. She immediately drags Cairo away to the cafeteria, and Miller couldn't help but browse through the books on Cairo's desk. At that point, Miller's friend Boris walks into the class and spots one of the titles, a book with intimate content. Amused by this, Boris reads aloud part of the novel just to embarrass his friend. But then something unexpected catches his eye. One of the books is a copy of Miller's own novel, which is long forgotten and largely ignored by the public. The realization that Cairo has read his work fills Miller with a quiet sense of pride and validation. That evening, Miller returns home to his wife, Beatrice, who is deeply absorbed in her computer. Eager to share his small triumph, he tries to engage her, but Beatrice is distracted, with her attention quickly diverted by a call from her coworker, Amy. Later on that evening, as Miller attempts to rekindle their connection, they are once again cut short by another call from Amy, leaving him dejected and irritated. The next morning, he vents his frustrations to Boris, as he laments how his weekend was derailed by Amy's constant interruptions. Boris, however, tries to lighten his mood as they talk. Soon, Cairo emerged from the woods with her usual style and walked directly to greet Miller and Boris. In a bid to draw himself back to reality, Miller initiates a casual chat with her as Boris steps away. Later that morning, in the hallway, Winnie dramatically drops her books on the floor as Boris walks by just to catch his attention. But he sees through her antics, and before anything could transpire, Cairo approaches her friend and warns her about her daring approach. That evening, Cairo visits her friend and Winnie offers her an unoriginal essay topic for her assignment. Although Cairo is not impressed by her suggestion, she listens as Winnie starts to propose an idea, one that seems to shift the tone of the conversation entirely. Winnie suggests that Cairo could flirt with Miller in order to spark inspiration for her writing. This totally catches Cairo off guard as she reminds her friend about the age difference, but Winnie remains unfazed, as she assures her that maturity can offer a different kind of connection, one that is grounded in understanding and emotional depth. Though Cairo remains uncertain about this, she starts to get curious about how this could play out. Over the following days, Cairo starts paying more attention to Miller. In class, her thoughts start to drift as she finds herself watching him more often. After class one day, Miller asks her to see him after school. That afternoon, Miller and Boris had a chat in his class, and Miller ended up inviting him over for dinner with his wife that evening. As Boris leaves, Miller is alone, and as he starts dancing to a tune from the radio, Cairo walks in. Embarrassed at being caught, he quickly brushes it off with humor, and the two share a brief, lighthearted moment. Their conversation shifts through Cairo's friendship with Winnie and her life at home. Miller then praises her writing, as he is impressed by her precision and insight. He also becomes attracted to talent, and he challenges her to write a short story in the style of her favorite author. If she succeeds, he promises that she'll ace the semester. Cairo accepts eagerly and surprises him by quoting a line from one of his own published works. Miller is impressed by this as he reveals that that was his first published book, something he holds close to his heart. Very impressed by her passion, he invites her to join him for a weekend event to discuss her story further. On the day of the event, Cairo arrives at the venue alone, and moments later, Miller playfully sneaks up behind her. They eventually sit together as a poet named Elliot performs. While Miller listens, Cairo occasionally glances at him, with her feelings growing more complex. Afterward, the two critique the performance, as they share thoughts and ideas about the event. Cairo then offers him a cigarette, which he accepts as they continue their little chat and grow more comfortable together. The next school day, Cairo appears transformed and more confident. She brings coffee for Miller and Boris, and once again shares a cigarette with Miller as the two joke when Boris leaves. Later, she confides in Winnie that Miller didn't say anything about her new look, but she could sense that he noticed. Towards the end of school that day, Miller receives a text from his wife informing him that she had planned for a surprise weekend trip for them, and that totally gets him excited. But as he starts getting ready to leave, Cairo approaches to inform him that she has decided to write her story in the style of Henry Miller, a writer known for exploring intimacy and emotional complexity. He is taken aback by her words as he is fully aware of the risks such a topic might pose in a school setting, and he initially expresses concern. But Cairo assures him it's the right approach, and he reluctantly agrees. Still very much caught between his emotions and his obligations, he quickly approves Cairo's story concept, barely considering the implications as he hurried away to meet his wife. Soon, Winnie joins Cairo in class, and as they talk, she teases her friend about how she's trying to seduce their teacher. But Cairo quietly brushes it off and tells Winnie that she just wants to get her work done. Moments later, Cairo notices that her phone is missing, and she frantically searches for it inside her bag. At the same time, Miller is already at home, and he is once again faced with his wife dealing with repeated calls from Amy, which is delaying the weekend getaway plan for the two. Moments later, Miller hears a phone ringing in his bag. It was Cairo's phone, which she had mistakenly left in his bag. Since his wife was not ready yet, and in order to smoothen things over, Miller offers to return the phone to Cairo's house himself, despite the bad weather conditions outside. So, he drives to Cairo's house where he finds her stepping out of the building wearing a strikingly revealing dress. When their eyes meet in the downpour, the moment builds with intensity as they get close and share a passionate kiss that shifts everything between them. The next day, Miller eventually receives Cairo's story, and as he reads it at home, he becomes deeply absorbed in its intimate nature and content. The narrative explores themes of intimacy and power, and his mind starts visualizing Cairo within the story's scenes. Troubled yet fascinated by the details of the story, he is forced to please himself as he finishes reading the story. The next day, Cairo arrives in class wearing a more provocative outfit, but she soon senses a cold shift in Miller's demeanor when he walks into the classroom. The warmth and attention he once showed her are gone. Disturbed by his change in attitude, she asks what was wrong, and Miller admits that her story, although it is well written, crosses boundaries inappropriate for a school setting. And though he recognizes her talent, he expresses concern over the message it might send to others, so he'll be rejecting the story for academic evaluation. Cairo is in total disbelief as she tries to defend her work, insisting it isn't as personal as he believes. But Miller refuses to listen as he dismisses the story entirely and tells her he regrets trusting her. Wounded and angry by his sudden change of attitude, Cairo lashes out, criticizing his own writing as mediocre and uninspired. She accuses him of being jealous of her talent. As the confrontation starts to escalate, Miller emphasizes the need to re-establish boundaries between them. Totally hurt by this, Cairo storms out and drops her story off in the administrative mailbox. Back home that night, Miller confides in Beatrice about Cairo's story. He tells his wife that it is the narration style of the story that is focused on a student-teacher relationship that leaves him with no choice. In the meantime, Cairo drowns her frustration in alcohol with Winnie, and as the night progresses, they become increasingly reckless, and they take revealing photos together, and Cairo pushes Winnie to send them to Boris to seduce him. That night, Boris receives the message from Winnie while he is at Miller's house, and he immediately excuses himself and leaves. Moments later, Miller receives a call from the school principal asking him to see her first thing the next morning. When he eventually makes it to the principal's office, she accuses him of engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a student. He is questioned by the principal in her office, and although he continues to deny having any affair with Cairo, the setting and what had transpired in the past few weeks were not convincing enough to clear him. Even at home, Miller keeps trying to reassure his wife, but Beatrice clearly tells him that the situation could cost him his career and even destroy their marriage. The next day, Cairo skips class to attend a meeting with the principal, while Miller, still very much under scrutiny, continues teaching, very much unsure of what's to come. In the meantime, Winnie grows increasingly distressed by Cairo's absence in class, and after lectures, she approaches Miller, asking if he knew about Cairo's whereabouts. But Miller, who is very much emotionally drained, could only reply that he doesn't know. Eventually, the principal's meeting with Cairo ends, and she is convinced that the two were deeply involved, which raises suspicions and subsequently places Miller's career at risk. As tension continues to build, the school suspends Miller pending further investigation. When he eventually steps outside, Boris confronts him and tells him that he should never have crossed his professional boundaries. But the advice is a little too late, and it only deepens Miller's sense of isolation. Back home, Miller informs Beatrice of his suspension, and when she presses for the full truth, he reluctantly admits to having developed feelings for Cairo. The confession triggers a fierce argument as she insists that she believes that he must have had an affair with the girl. Although Miller tries to convince her otherwise, and also stresses the point that Beatrice's busy schedule has not really allowed for them to be close, he pleas fall on deaf ears. And in the end, Beatrice announces her intention to file for divorce and storms out of the room. Meanwhile, Winnie confronts Cairo and pleads with her to consider the damage she's causing. But Cairo, who looks very nonchalant about the situation, informs her that she views the situation as her ultimate victory. When Winnie tells her that she would reveal the truth instead, Cairo threatens that if she does, she will also expose Winnie's dealings with Boris, meaning that 2 teachers will be suspended instead of 1. As Winnie is left to ponder on how the entire plan she had orchestrated is playing out against her, Cairo begins crafting her college essay, as she starts transforming the entire ordeal into a narrative of revenge. She frames it as a response to Miller's betrayal of trust and refusal to respect her voice as a writer. As she carries on, Cairo vividly recounts the scandal and emotional fallout, casting herself as the architect of Miller's downfall. At the end of the movie, we see Cairo walking towards the Board of Education building where Miller is sitting in despair. Their eyes meet for a moment, and although a tear runs down her face, it is evident that she is visibly satisfied with the chaos she has orchestrated. And that's the story of the movie Miller's Girl. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us what you think about the movie. Until next time, stay safe.